Hi, my name is Whitney Unteed, and I am partner and director of pro bono initiatives at Ackerman. I'm housed in our Miami office, but I've been working with legal services across the state to help folks build their very best presence on Florida pro bono matters with the goal of matching every single pro bono case with the right pro bono volunteer. The best way to get an attorney's interest piqued with a pro bono card on Florida Pro Bono Matters is really to think about what is most compelling about your case. When you're looking at crafting a compelling title, a compelling headline for your Pro Bono Matters case card, you want to think about clickbait. What is it that's going to capture the right person's attention and get them reading in further? Think about being unconventional, doing something a little bit different. Humor can be your friend, as well as, in the right case, bringing in a level of urgency to let the pro bono volunteers know that this is a client who really needs their help and really needs their help right now. Your goal with the headline is to make the reader need to learn more about the case. It's not even just they want to, it's that they need to learn more about the case. There is something in your headline that has piqued their interest that makes them have to go through and read your full description. You want to use active verb tense and compelling verbs. And you want to use adjectives and adverbs, descriptors that are going to really tout the importance of either the client or the legal need in the case. But my rule of thumb is 7 words or less. If you can do it in 5, that's even better. You want to make sure that you're keeping it short, keeping it simple, and keeping it compelling. Once you've grabbed your potential pro bono volunteers' interest, and now they have come down and they're reading your description, you've only got 250 characters to get them to click on that I'm interested icon and connect with your pro bono coordinator. So what that means is you've only got about 2 sentences to give your pro bono volunteers enough information to determine that they are the right person to help this particular client. Just like in your headline, you really want to make sure that you're focusing on active verb tense and that you're using appropriate adjectives and adverbs to really define what is most meaningful or impactful about this case. Adjectives or adverbs to give some background information about the client, about the legal need, or about the adverse party. Notice I said or, because you're not going to be able to fit in everything into your case card description. 250 characters, 2 sentences is not a whole lot of space. So your goal here is to pick the most important and the most compelling pieces so that your pro bono volunteer, number 1, can determine whether or not they feel a need to assist this client, and then 2, so that they can determine whether or not they are the right lawyer to assist this client. You want to be really focusing on the type of law, the area of law, and what is particularly compelling about this client. The other thing that you need to think about including in your case description is if there are any specific parameters that your pro bono volunteer will need to be able to meet in order to take on the case. If you need a pro bono volunteer with a certain area of legal expertise, you should include that in your case description. If your pro bono volunteer needs to have a language skill, then you should also include that in your case description. And of course, if there are any upcoming deadlines or court appearances, that information should be available in the case description. You don't want to be fielding phone calls and inquiries from potential pro bono volunteers who don't meet the baseline requirements or who don't have the required bandwidth to be able to assist this client appropriately. You also want to be thinking about whether or not your program can offer the pro bono volunteer any services, such as mentorship, a translator, co-counseling, or template documents that they can use as filings in the case. If you have potential ability to support your pro bono volunteer in a special way on a particular type of case, then you may want to consider including that in your case description as well. Additionally, if your case is going to require only a very small time for your lawyer, or if your case is going to require an extensive involvement for your lawyer, you may want to consider adding that information very briefly in your case description. And then finally, as a hint, because the case descriptions are character driven, only 250 characters, not 250 words, you can think about using symbols or abbreviation in your case descriptions so that you can have fewer characters and be able to tell a fuller story. The one thing about that, though, is that you want to be very careful about using legalese or jargon or acronyms that may not be familiar to all of the lawyers who are potential pro bono volunteers for this case. A great example is immigration cases. We use a lot of jargon and a lot of different acronyms in immigration court, like SIJS. Unless you very specifically need a lawyer with immigration experience for a particular case, you really want to stay away from using that jargon and those acronyms in your case description, because you could potentially turn off people who aren't familiar with those types of descriptors or those types of legal terms or words. So I want you to remember the goldfish. Research shows that goldfish have an attention span of about 3 seconds. And research also shows that in the 21st century era of technology, humans have an attention span roughly equivalent to that of a goldfish, which means that you need to capture your audience's attention right off from the very start. Otherwise, you risk them looking past your case card description. The goal here is to make sure that your case card is easily readable on the small screen of a tablet or a smartphone. If you have the scroll bar on the right side of your case card, you risk the possibility that your target pro bono volunteer will skip past anything that they have to scroll through. Think about how you read your Facebook or your LinkedIn or your Twitter feed. If you have to start getting too far down, you'll often lose interest, right? It's the same concept with getting our case cards and making sure that we're connecting with the right pro bono volunteers. Brevity is your friend. Making sure that you come out and your very first words in your case description are compelling and exciting and enticing to your pro bono volunteer. Remembering that you will always be able to fill in the blanks and answer any questions after they've clicked on I'm interested and when they've connected by phone or by email with your pro bono coordinator. I want to walk through together an example using a fact pattern. Jennifer Lopez needs a pro bono lawyer. Take a minute to look over the fact pattern that will appear on your screen and jot down your thoughts, both on what you think really jumps out to you as the potential for a headline, and also ideas and triggers that you think really grab attention for the case description. What does your pro bono volunteer need to know to make sure that they need to help? You want to think about how you could best highlight the client. Maybe we call her a domestic violence survivor, or maybe for short, we call her a DV survivor. We could also perhaps call her an abused mother, or mother and children, or even shorter, mother and kids. Of course, we could also focus the headline on the respondent in this particular case. We might call him abusive ex. We might call him knife-wielding husband. We might call him something along those lines that is going to give power to the fact that our client is particularly vulnerable because of the actions or the personality of the respondent in this particular case. So when we're thinking about our headline there, really make sure that you're thinking clickbait, that you're thinking unconventionally and outside of the box, and finding ways that you can differentiate this particular case card from every other case card on the page, so that this description, so that this headline jumps out to your targeted pro bono volunteer and makes them need to help. In this particular case, there's a lot of information that we could include. But again, because you are so limited to just 250 characters, you really want to make sure that you're hitting just one highlight of the case. Perhaps you're stressing the fact that this is a mother and her 2 children who have the legal need. Perhaps you want to stress the fact that she has been a long time victim or survivor of domestic violence. Perhaps again, you want to stress the high stature of the ex-husband or the abusive nature of the relationship and of his past and current actions. Or of course, you could also stress the legal need. Although you really here want to make sure that if you do choose to stress the legal need, again, you're staying away from jargon, you're not using acronyms or words that will be unfamiliar to most of your readers, and that you're speaking the language of a general lay person. We know from this particular hypothetical scenario that there is a deadline, and so you want to make sure that you include that information so you don't have to field calls from lawyers who aren't going to be available on the day of the court hearing. Finally, and this is particularly important, before you submit your case card for it to go live on Florida Pro Bono Matters, you want to make sure that you and probably a second pair of eyes in your program have proofread both the headline and the description. You want to make sure that there are not any spelling or grammatical mistakes in the description of your case card. Because if there are mistakes in the description of your case card, you're likely to lose the attention and to lose the interest of your potential pro bono volunteers. It's always good to proofread yourself, but I suggest that you always have a second pair of eyes look it over before your case card goes live. So now that we've gone over both the basic ground rules for crafting a compelling description for your Florida Pro Bono Matters case cards, and we've gone through one example using a hypothetical situation, it's now time for you to go forth and prosper. As always, your friends at Florida Bar Foundation, Savvy Suit, and I are willing, able, and at the ready to assist. If you want to collaborate, if you have questions, or if you want to brainstorm a particular tricky situation and where you're not quite sure what's going to be most compelling to your pro bono volunteers. We're all here to help because we're all invested in each program's success in matching every single one of your Florida Pro Bono Matters cases with the right pro bono volunteer to provide excellent service to your clients.